Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 35 of Christ 55 Days of Christ Consciousness, which is inspired by the self-mastery deck, Christ Consciousness self-mastery deck, created by Amanda Ellis and illustrated by Jane Delaford Taylor. And this is just a beautiful book. And I decided to, take this 55-day journey to explore these cards and the messages in them and what insight they have for you. So for those of you just joining this journey, I'm Gina, Soul Inspired Reflections. And this is just to get acquainted with the deck, the messages in the deck, and support you in your own self-mastery and the organic process of ascension. And even while we're connecting with the energy of Christ consciousness and the teachings of Jesus through this deck, I really encourage you to let go of any connotation to religion that you may feel contracted and may be in the way of you receiving the message for you. And also, it's an opportunity for you to maybe address something within yourself if your body is feeling contracted, like, oh, I don't like this term. I don't, you don't even have to believe any of this stuff, but go into the deeper layers of yourself, into introspection, self-reflection, and how might some of these qualities within you be fostered, cultivated, nurtured, things of that nature, and how might these teachings be an example of how you can show up in your own life through the expansion of your heart, the expansion of your energetic body, your light body, and recognize how to use the body a little bit more and how it shows up in your physical life, through your experiences, and through your, as some may say, the imprints laid upon you through maybe growing up, through society, through different various things where it shapes our perceptions, it shapes your beliefs. And then recognizing, wow, that doesn't feel right. Because that's usually where people go, where it's like, just doesn't feel right. You can feel it deep down in your bones. And the thought that comes to mind is when I stopped going to a traditional or conventional church, because I would come out angry. And I always knew, just be good in your heart, right? And then my dad, being the wonderful man that he was, he wanted to give us a foundation, right? So, I was baptized Catholic. We went to the Catholic Church for a little while, but they never forced it on us. They wanted us to have a foundation. And then I have an older brother who he's like, hey, go to this evangelical church and they have a youth group, right? And so I went, and because there's something about being connected and in the community, and there were good things about it too. But there was something about the delivery of the message that just in my core didn't fit. And that was through fear. It was delivered through, if you don't believe this way, then you're condemned. And that never sat right with me in my body, because it contradicted what I knew God to be and people. That it didn't make sense to me to have all these different beautiful religions that ultimately have the same teaching within it, just through perhaps a different language, right? When you let go of the imprints that were laid over the teachings, that can be distracting. So this is also an invitation for those of you to maybe expand your spiritual practice in the way you connect to your religious faith, right? And to expand it. You don't have to leave it. But for me, I would come back and my body would just be like, oh, after listening to some of these things in the way it was being taught. And I could feel the innate contradictions, right? And my dad said, if you go to church and you come and it makes you this angry, he's all, maybe you shouldn't go. And hearing that just gave me permission to go, oh my gosh, thank you, because I don't want to be here anymore. Right? Because it didn't the way it was being delivered just didn't feel right. And it wasn't about not wanting, to have a faith or belief system, but I just knew deep down, I'm like, this is not the way for me to be taught and to expand my growth and connection to Christ consciousness, right? But what it did give me, I had this inspiration while on a retreat up in the mountains at 14 or 15 years old, and where I consciously accepted that energy. So looking back on my own journey, it's been a long time when I accepted to receive that energy of Christ consciousness. And that's what that gave me, those experiences. And I have had a wonderful youth leader who we still stay in contact with, and to support me in that process, and what inspired me to just open up my life and my heart to a way of living, right? And that's what I really want to inspire you. It's a way of living. And how do you also grow and expand with this way of living and being? Because you're embodying your higher self. You are embodying your higher self. Some may refer to it as your future self, your high-end presence, and nothing can stand in the way of you moving direct unless you allow it. So this, I encourage you to go direct within your heart center, your I am presence, direct to your source energy that we're all created from, and bring that energy in through the body into the earth, from the cosmos. So let's see what card's message we have for this morning on October 18th, 2023. So whenever you come to these videos, you're coming to that at right the exact time that you need it. Also revisit them, because you are different every time you come back to the message, and you may receive something different, or you may be reminded of something. I'm reminded all the time of different things. And oh, yes. So we have humbleness. Humbleness has come out 3 times. And I feel that it just has a huge message for us to, maybe it's just going to come along with every single card on the deck. But I'm grateful that it has stood alone today on its own, because we didn't read the message in the prior videos, yet humbleness was very much a part of the other cards, and it's very much a part of this whole organic process, and the humbling of the ego and repurposing of the ego, because we do need the ego in certain ways, but I call it more the higher ego versus the lower ego, right? Where you're just in a different level of alignment. You're not in self-doubt, you're not contemplating all these things like we saw with Thomas. We're humbled, we're not above anybody. We're in this place of total acceptance and forgiveness and peace in a way within yourself, within your heart. And humility and modesty in our experiences in life. Carolyn Mace references this oftentimes, this spiritual journey, this human experience, and the awakening to spirit in connection to the whole of life. She says, well, it's intimate. It's a very intimate experience, but it is not personal, meaning it's not purposely being done to you to have you go through these discomforts, right? It's an organic process of an energy that has innate wisdom and a divine order all in itself, that as human beings, we try to make sense of it. Our mind, as we kind of circled around with Thomas, cannot hold the vastness and capacity of what this process even is, of ascension and expanding and enlightenment and embodiment, self-power, connection to source, like you're plugging directly into energy. So how do you be with it just now and trust in the deepest aspects of yourself, the deepest part of your heart and faith in this energy that is you and that you're directly connected to, coming into your body, you embodying these qualities into the physical, right? Because it's very much into the crown and third eye center. It's very much about our imagination and vision, and in this anti-particle place where you're in the ethers, and a leg in the ethers and a leg in the physical. And how do we bring that in, feel it in the body, mentally, emotionally, physically, and cellularly as you create, right? And also as you reconstruct and go through this, our deconstruction process of all these things that just are in the way of that happening, all the faults, as people will say, faults, veils, things like that. And it's just an infinite process. So to be humble right where you are and know that that too is just a step and just a level of your experience as a soul coming into embodiment, integrating your I am presence, your Christ consciousness energies, working with the universal laws and rays of light that exist within you, that expand out through the depth and golden core of every cell. Light, that golden light. It's pure. It's no longer polarized. It's just is unchanged. Opening up within your heart, within every single cell of your mind, body, spirit, tissue. Coming in, you're learning and remembering how to work with creation energy, and that is a process all its own. So how might you remain humble to those that are going through the deconstruction, we'll say, and that also have made different choices than you, and have some even have made horrible choices against humanity, and they can feel very purposeful or like personal to you, even directed toward you. How might you learn to forgive those that have harmed you, and forgive yourself for those that have you harmed through word, through anger, through disappointment, because you were operating with a different program. You were out of harmony yourself. How might you also look at yourself? What role did you play to create? What were your thoughts? What were your visions? What beliefs kind of got laid over that distorted them, and then you've got turned into a different trajectory? And how might that have returned you back here to your heart center, where you're seeking realignment within yourself and connection to source energy, and where you're learning, how do I be in flow with these universal energies that live within me, with the whole of life, and that seed atom, that golden light of life that lives within every single living thing. It's in the plants, it's in the ocean, that sacred geometry of the Merkaba that holds all the elements within it in creation. That is within you. And that energy comes down in through the crown center, through the third eye, and you can breathe it in and visualize it and breathe it and put it into the physical. But as you do that, you have to recognize where you need to purify and realign your beliefs, your relationship to power, and recognize everything is just energy and has the same importance as anything else. The pencil has just as much importance as the paper. The pencil has just as much importance as money. It's all energy, and how do you use that, and what relationship do you have with it? Is it in right relationship, right? Where are you in relationship to that? How might you be humble with yourself when you've made choices that you've recognized were maybe out of fear, versus out of, oh no, these are the steps I need to create a business idea So what do I need? I need funding. Okay, great. What's my relationship with funding? Oh, what are steps do I have to take? Oh, wow, this is scary. Do I have the means to do this? Right? You're in your solar plexus, your fear. What relationships do I need to call forth? Do I trust them? Sacral chakra. What do I have a supportive community around this? All these different things where Carolyn Mace describes this very well, where you run it up your flagpole, you run it up the steps of your chakra system as you also are running it down. So it's both ascending and descending energy, right? The Akashic record, Akasha means basically like the purest energy before any emotional imprint is laid upon it. This is where I feel we are all returning to our purest energetic state and releasing and letting go of the emotional layers, releasing and letting go of the mental layers. And what people say, what even you've said, you're letting that go and having a completely different relationship with the energy and creation of that runs through you, because every single one of us are creators through our thoughts, through our visions, through our minds, through our voice and action. And when those line up in the heart and your intuitive center, when those are online and in line with each other, we limit any flow to that creation to be manifested into the physical. When you are in resistance to that flow of energy, there's leaves the potential, because energy has to go somewhere. When you're not in allowing that creative energy to come in through and be expressed, it can create discord in the tissues, in the cell tissues. And this is where there's the potential for discord or illness to be created, or the body starts to not be in harmony, right? So that even includes the choices we make to what we feed our body, what we feed our eyes. That's very much connected to our third eye center, because we have the all-seeing eye when our third eye is completely online. It's that bridging of the higher and human, right? We're seeing and perceiving. It has a lot to do with perception. So how might even your own perceptions of humility and modesty and your own perceptions be imprinting and being limiting to your pure essence energy? So let's real quick, because I got to get going for a client. It's card number 34, and read the message of humility. And for some reason, I think we might have got this card a couple of times, but in any event, I don't recall reading it. Okay, many of us live in cultures that from childhood constantly push us to aspire a higher and higher, achieve more. Push us to aspire higher and achieve more. Material possession and positions of power are held in esteem. The CEO of a company is held better regard of the lesser roles, but this is an old paradigm, thinking we all need each other to keep the wheels of our world turning. Humbleness and humility, its qualities, can be overlooked at the expense of ego-led drivers that will, it is assumed, achieve more faster. This, however, needs re-examining, since to champion instead quiet virtue, diligence, and grounded authenticity are key. So I really feel we're revisiting this card. And that's probably how important it is, because it keeps popping up on this journey. So really sit with your relationship to these messages. Become aware of the moments we get to serve this world in small ways and larger ones, from the tending of the overgrown garden, helping nature to flourish, to the baking of bread to feed our families. If we can consciously address each task and moment as an opportunity to demonstrate Christ consciousness, we contribute so much more than we realize, particularly when we do it with love. To not judge anything as more worthy or of our time or attention. The cleaning of home, of the washing of the clothes, is just as important as the pressing work assignment or challenging project. Okay. In the washing of the disciples' feet by Jesus, he demonstrated that no job is too low or unworthy, and that no one is more important than the other. Indeed, in acts such as these, we truly show our greatness, not via sitting in lofty positions of esteemed value. In the times of Jesus, washing of the feet before a meal would have been conducted by more lowly servants. Jesus, however, demonstrated clearly that he was happy to do this and did so as an act of love as well as to help. He also carried it out to set an example for others to follow. The cleansing aspect of washing the feet is also a prompt to keep ourselves clean physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We should take notice of where our feet take us, into what territory, and with which intent. To walk in peace is the goal. I'm going to repeat that. We should take notice of where our feet take us, into what territory, and with which intent. To walk in peace is the goal. So pay attention to your intention and purpose. Okay. Recognize what we do not know is also an aspect of humbleness, since there will always be more to learn and new discoveries to be revealed. Keeping any sense of superiority in check is vital, since we all are students of life and the journey eternal. To not be arrogant or proud, but to go about our life quality and diligently, knowing we are loved and noticed for who we are, as also as an important aspect of humbleness. Today, reappraise neglected areas of your life that you deemed unimportant or had not prioritized. The phone call you had put off, as well as community activities like the beach, the park cleanup, or volunteer charity items to donate. This card can also be an invitation to offer back random acts of kindness with no expectation for acclaim or recognition, a goodwill gesture that will brighten another's day. Appreciate also how caring for those under your care is a privilege, not a chore. Both the baby and the elderly parent with needs that can be answered with a humble heart, remembering that you too have once been that baby, and you too will be the old man or woman. To give with no pretense or agenda, simply from love, is one of the highest acts of spiritual service we can give. Kind-hearted acts and helping those who are struggling show our humility and what is best in being human. And this reminds me too how important this humbleness is, and to recognize also where you are at with your own life and where others are. Because right now, as I've recorded this, there's so much discord popping off in the world, right? We have 2 different wars going on. And it can strike so much in people, like what's occurring in the Gaza Strip right now. And there's also a lot of truths coming up about how these things even occur. And that can be really hard for people to delve into that. But it also strikes some ancestral healing, the imprints laid in that land of war and discord, and also recognizing this is where the humility comes in too for both sides. Because when we get into a blame game, and I say this with very much an open heart, and not to ignore how it's impacting people on a deep level. But it's an invitation to you to go deeper within yourself. If you're recognizing you are taking, what's the right word? If it's really bringing up a lot for you, and your history, your ancestry, because there are no winners in war, none. No winners when you take a life. There's no winners on either side. And how might you still bring peace to yourself, to the places you go? Because especially when emotions are running high and we're running on emotions. And I was witnessing some dialogue recently back and forth, and this woman had very deep emotions and was going into it's about occupying territory, and it's not a religious war and all these things. Now, I'm not a historian on this region, and I just don't know enough to comment on it either. But what I want to invite you to expand the perception. I'm not asking you to let go of what you perceive, but this is the challenging piece when we need to step further into unity consciousness and oneness and peace in your heart, while still experiencing the intensity of your own emotions or feeling the emotions of others, how might you still be love in action? How might you still be forgiving? How might you still use discernment and humbleness and your own humility and modesty, and hold space for another person that is really, really feeling the depths of some of these things, as well as hold that space for yourself and recognize we're all at different levels of where we're at. And there's no place for trying to be the person that is right in the room and trying to force your beliefs and feelings onto other people, while you have perfectly valid to have your perceptions, your opinions and beliefs. But how might we still keep space for peace, space for harmony, space for unity, and hold it for everyone involved, every single soul involved in these occurrences in life, and bringing that also into the macro, or excuse me, into the microcosm of your own life. How might you be humble and hold space for those in your own life that are struggling, that have done wrong things, or where you have done things that have harmed another? Because we're no different from that energy. But when you start to move out of this polarity and go into a negative, or excuse me, into where there is no longer polarity in your being, these things begin to take on and be perceived in a very different way as you integrate your Christ consciousness and I am presence into the physical. I'm Gina, Soul Inspired Reflections. Much love to all of you today. And I hope this brings some interesting introspection for yourself and how might you move forward in your life. Much love to all of you. And until next time.